Meenakshi, we can start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you as we begin the second day of our international conference on recent trends and advancements in the field of designing. It was truly inspiring to witness the enthusiasm, thought provoking discussions, and knowledge sharing that took place yesterday. Your active participation has set a vibrant tone for the rest of the event, and we are excited to carry that momentum forward today. We have another day packed with insightful keynote session and engaging paper presentations that promise to broaden our understanding and spark innovative thinking. Let us continue to ask questions, share perspectives, and build meaningful connections with fellow delegates. A special word of thanks to all our speakers, presenters, session chairs, and organizing team whose dedication makes this event possible. We look forward to another productive and enriching day together. It is now my honor to introduce and welcome our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Cosette M. Joyner Martinez. Dr. Cosette M. Joyner Martinez is a leading academic and practitioner in sustainable fashion consumption with over 15 years of experience in higher education and industry. She currently serves as an associate professor at Texas State University, having previously held faculty roles at Oklahoma State University and Aalto University in Finland. She holds a PhD in human ecology, apparel and textiles, and has authored more than 40 peer-reviewed publications on sustainability, mindful consumption, fashion pedagogy, and circular economy models. A certified mindfulness teacher and graduate of the Osage Forest of Peace School of Spiritual Direction, Dr. Joanna Martinez uniquely integrates spirituality and ecological thinking into her work on sustainable design education. Her career includes significant industry experience with Talbot, Sears, Macy's, and Winston Retail Solutions, and she is highly regarded for her innovative teaching, student mentorship, and curriculum development. She has secured nearly $1 million in external grant funding and received multiple awards for research, teaching, and advising. Dr. Joanna Martinez is also a recognized thought leader, serving on editorial boards, conference committees, and the executive team of the Sustainable Fashion Consumption Network. Her research and insights have been featured in the Washington Post, Vogue Business, and Newsweek. Dear participants, please join me in welcoming Dr. Cosette M. Joyner Martinez. Ma'am, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and it's always such a pleasure to be invited to this to your programs. And this particular program is vast, and the content that you're covering, and was really excited to look through the schedule. I wish some of it was happening in my daylight hours so I could attend, but I'm very happy to play this role, and thank you so much for helping me negotiate the time zone so that I could be here with you. I'm going to talk just a little bit today about fashion circularity, and particularly since I'm a sustainable consumption researcher, about the clothing user's role and how valuable it is to think about the clothing user as we think about designing for fashion circularity. If we trace the roots of fashion circularity, what we most recently were likely inspired by in our field was concepts like cradle to cradle and the material metabolisms, but those were really underpinned by industrial ecology, which was really inspired by biomimicry, and that was all underpinned by systems theory. But if we trace that back to the ideas about how human beings have used and reused material objects over time, we find much deeper roots of circularity that those roots are ancient and they are multifaceted and they are grounded in natural cycles and traditional practices of reuse. Again. Okay. Oops. So, for example, Native American tribes across North America practice sophisticated systems of material reuse and recycling for centuries, long before these concepts became central to modern environmental movements. And these practices represent far more than just mere economic necessity. They embody a deep spiritual connection to the earth and a profound respect for natural resources and ingenious adaptations to diverse environments. Transforming, repairing, and repurposing materials sustain these cultures across generations, and their stories reveal not only remarkable technical knowledge, but also cultural transmission. And the traditional Inuit, for example, prepared seal skins, and the stories of the seal skin preparation is a story of survival, but also ingenuity and profound relationships between materials and cultural identity. After hunters brought back the seals to the community, Inuit women would transform the raw hides into protective garments. They cleaned the skins, they scraped away the blubber, they engaged in the communal task of chewing dried skins to make them pliable. And this community understood and utilized the natural biochemistry of saliva long before it was scientifically documented. To maintain the sealskin clothing required ongoing care, like removing snow and ensuring proper drying. When the garments stiffened over time, women chewed them again to restore their softness. And this practice literally shaped Inuit women's physical development. Their highly developed jaw muscles and teeth worn down from years of processing skins. It is a physical testament to their dedication to material stewardship. Native American communities across the Great Plains, where I spent most of my adult life, developed sophisticated systems also of recycling and repurposing that encompassed virtually every aspect of material culture. Both prehistoric and historic groups routinely repurpose stone and shell, hides, beads, metals. Components of larger objects were often cut, sewn, reworked into entirely new and different items. Leather, beads, metals were transferred from worn garments to new jackets or moccasins or beaded bags to maintain the artistry and the stories about the culture. And these design practices have been driven by necessity, but also the cultural belief in smart and complete resource use. Materials have been seen as valuable in these cultures, deserving multiple lives. So circularity is not new. What is newer is the idea that we could create circularity in the total absence of the user of the object, that we could create efficiencies, reduce toxicity in an industrial system, connect disparate parts of the industry to capitalize and eliminate waste. These are all ideas of industrial ecology, all without the user necessarily being inconvenienced or troubled by complicated design processes or redesign processes, and ultimately without creating much meaning. These examples and that I've shared with you and hundreds of other indigenous cultures all share some common principles when it comes to designing material objects. Take only what is needed. Many indigenous cultures teach to harvest only what's necessary and to ensure that the resource can regenerate before it's harvested again. To repurpose and share, items are repaired, repurposed, shared with others in a way that minimizes waste and also maximizes utility. And regeneration and reciprocity. There's a strong ethic of giving back to the land, where whether it's composting or ceremonial practices or direct stewardship, These principles suggest that real circularity, real efficiency, the real elimination of waste and toxicity is born of a culture of circularity. That culture inherently connects makers and users, many of whom are both maker and user, or remaker and reuser, as it were. In these cultures, there is a routine of revisiting the material and its meaning over time. And so we might pause here to consider, to what extent does our current approach to circularity in the fashion industry embody these principles? And most importantly, are we igniting in our design work a culture of circularity that really engages the end user in a new way of living with things? And exploring this question allows us to identify some really powerful areas of transformation, including how we educate designers. So certainly how we began thinking about circularity most recently in our contemporary industry was through these material metabolisms of cradle to cradle. And this was the idea that all materials could be reduced to some type of food value in its second or third or fourth life after that initial use. And these metabolisms were really a reflection of how material flows in nature and how nature designs. Nature always designs things to decompose safely at room temperature without heat in a biological cycle, or it's reused in the local environment infinitely in a technical cycle without any loss of quality. Nature reflects a culture that not only eliminates waste, but increases efficiencies, and does so collaboratively by drawing upon diverse stakeholders in the system to work together. And we've spent decades in the fashion field exploring the implications of cradle to cradle for clothing. And it's arguably natural, I think, first to think about, well, how could we address waste, since it is the thing that is increasing the most? How could we treat waste differently? That is a rather natural process, a rather natural line of thinking. So while designing clothing for food value is novel, we consider it very novel, it's largely too complicated to be practical. And we have now ample evidence of this. 85% of the clothing that we dispose is landfilled or incinerated. The volume of that particular waste has increased 25% just in the last decade, and it is poised to increase an additional 25%. So we're going to double the amount of waste that will go directly into a landfill near you. And only 15% of textile waste is diverted for recycling. That percentage actually has not changed for about 25 years, and is a decrease of 50% in the volume of textiles that we were recycling 40 years ago. Less than 1% of recycled clothing is used to make new clothing, and even less than that is really designed to safely decompose as we would in a true cradle-to-cradle mechanism. So to fully appreciate just how ambitious true circularity or creating food value really is with textiles that are used for clothing is to observe what our clothing is being made of most commonly, and that is synthetic. So 75% of all fiber used in clothing today is synthetic. Most of it's polyester, some regenerated cellulosics like rayon. The overall volume of synthetics has doubled in the last 10 to 15 years. And though some of these synthetics are very much poised for a technical metabolism, the processes have proven to be so resource and carbon intensive that bringing them into mainstream practice has been largely impossible. So some of the other ventures like Next Gen Materials have also evidenced similar complexities. And the recent bankruptcy of RenewCell last year represented a real pivotal moment for the textile sector. RenewCell was hailed as a pioneering textile recycling company that worked for over a decade to create circulose, a fiber that was created by converting cotton waste into sustainable fibers. And some of the key factors that ultimately plagued RenewCell's success was that the recycled pulp cost nearly twice as much as competing sources of wood pulp. And so they struggled to find reliable customers, fashion companies with the patience and the commitment to support these innovative materials and make them more of a mainstay in the fashion industry. And this experience that RenewCell had is far from an isolated case. Multiple startups attempting textile to textile recycling or next gen materials have faced similar financial and operational and market adoption challenges. The failure rate is generally so high because of the research and development investment that they require, but also the legislative environment to bring these materials to fruition is often very difficult to navigate. And aside simply from the higher price that these materials command, it's generally difficult to understand on the front end how these fibers will really contribute substantially to product longevity. It's difficult to know that. So I know there are many textile scientists probably in this audience, and I'm certainly not discounting the efforts that are being made to broaden and diversify the material mix, which is very noteworthy. And I do think that there is certainly a time and a place and a product for these materials, but it is very short-sighted to put too many eggs in this basket in regard to fashion. And I actually think that the prospect of lower profit margins for fashion brands is too simplistic an explanation as a barrier to their adoption of this type of circularity. I think the larger problem is that these material innovations largely occur in a black box. The clothing user knows very little about them or their significance, if they know anything at all. It is not made meaningful to the consumer. The stories are not told as they are within cultures like indigenous communities. The stories are not told about recycling processes in a meaningful way to the clothing user. And the material innovation isn't always aesthetically or functionally desirable to the consumer. But these are important factors that bind clothing users to their clothes in social and psychological ways, which ultimately will determine how quickly or slowly a clothing item becomes waste. So rather than waste being our first thought, we could benefit from placing the clothing user at the center and not in the margins of the circular system. So in many ways, the user is already at the center of fashion circularity, but not because designers and industry leaders put them there, but because they dragged this industry kicking and screaming into a resale and secondhand revolution. They created a circular fashion culture that they desire and value, and they made it clear that reuse, not recycling, is the future. If we wish to design an effective circular fashion culture, we should look no further than the average clothing user's wardrobe for inspiration. Clothing users routinely take all the air and water and energy that's embodied in every garment they possess, and they metabolize it at varying speeds in the wardrobe, depending on their own self-interest, their social and psychological motivations. And much like how we metabolize different types of food differently through our body, so does clothing move through our wardrobe at different paces. For example, sleepwear or undergarments or special occasion apparel often experience slower metabolisms and a longer lifespan in the wardrobe. These garments beg for repair, redesign, and tailoring support. Activewear experiences one of the fastest metabolisms because it's used frequently and intensely. These garments are likely better poised for a material innovation. So clothing users do many things as they metabolize their wardrobe. They will reuse clothing by reassigning its purpose. They will alter, tailor, repair the things that they love. They will thrift and shop vintage to create their own unique personal style. They will rent what they do not wish to own long term. They'll share their clothes with family and friends. They'll sell their clothing items that they don't like anymore to someone else who can enjoy it. And these habits slow the nutrients down so that they can be absorbed and used for a longer period of time. So despite a well-documented decline in clothing usership over the last decade, the average clothing user actually goes into the relationship with a new clothing item hoping for a long marriage. And a recent study found that even fast fashion customers are retaining their clothes for a longer time than expected, even repairing them and getting a lot of wear out of them. So, how we've been thinking about fashion circularity as this drive for material innovation and recycling is practically out of step with how clothing users actually wear, care, and develop relationships with their clothing. And clothing users are routinely creating many lives and circulations with their clothes, with or without industry intervention. So last year, for the first time, overall spending on new clothing fell by 3%. And the greatest slowdown and decreasing sales really happened in the luxury sector, over 20% down for the year. And part of that instability does absolutely have to do with global economies and instabilities there, a shrinking middle class globally. But it also has to do with aspects of the circular fashion economy, like resale and rental, that have provided better and less costly access to luxury and high quality items. So what does it mean for design and product development if the greatest expansion in the material economy is secondhand? So I want to share with you a short video clip about a Swedish shopping center that provides a potential vision.
This shopping mall in Sweden may look normal, but there's something different about it. Every item here is second-hand. Some products are upcycled, so unwanted things are reinvented as something new, like this lampshade, which is made from worn-out leather jackets.
It's a high fashion fair shopping mall where you can come and just do sustainable shopping, and Sweden loves it and the world loves it. Everyone wants to be like us.
The clever thing about this mall in Eskilstuna near Stockholm is its location, right next to the city's recycling center. So a steady stream of cars is already coming to drop off unwanted household items. A team sorts everything into categories. The mall's shopkeepers can then pick things to resell or upcycle. Maria Larsson runs a popular shop. It sells handmade household ornaments.
This is the most creative place to be in, and I also saving the planet.
The mall has 14 specialist shops. It also hosts a design school. Students learn how to upcycle commonly donated objects.
I really want to make something good about the climate crisis right now, and I feel like I'm on the right place.
In 2018, the mall sold second-hand goods worth $1.3 million, meaning unwanted items found new homes.
So the dominance of the star designer or the flagship fashion brand has been in significant decline for many years. And designers are now in a unique position to reimagine their profession around supporting the life extension of clothes. And upcycling is certainly part of that. We certainly can't ignore a secondhand sector that is already 10% and is poised to be 20 or 30% of overall apparel sales around the globe. So a big part of that means transitioning design competence into upcycling or redesign competence, which is a different skill set. Think of all the clothing users who have the clothes, but don't have the time or the ideas or the skills to reuse, to reinvent, or reimagine. Designers are in the best position to fill that demand. That demand is there, and it reflects the greatest potential for growth over the next 15 years. It's time to stop thinking about design as only producing new garments, and there are other, more imaginative ways to create. Take a look at Eileen Fisher's Renew collection.
We really believe that every garment tells a story, and who's to say that that story should end? Renew is the clothing take-back program of Eileen Fisher. We buy back our clothes from our customers for $5 per garment on a gift card that they can use at any store. We started this journey in 2009. In the last decade, we have taken back 1.4 million pieces of clothing. The reason that we're able to take these clothes back is because they're simple, timeless, and well-made. Renew is made up of a group of incredibly passionate and innovative individuals that have been trying to solve this problem of textile waste. Many of us have been working together since the very beginning and learning every step of the way. Each individual piece gets hand-touched and sorted and looked over by many different eyes throughout the process. Here in our Seattle warehouse alone, we sort about 2,000 garments a week. Eileen Fisher Renew is a very human-powered program. When we talk about the circular economy, we are talking about the full life cycle of the product we make at Eileen Fisher, and what happens when our customer is finished with it, and then what happens when it's no longer wearable. And I think we're answering a couple of those problems in a really successful and scalable way. We want to be very transparent about this program. We feel like sustainability is not a secret to be kept, and we want to see everybody doing this. With each garment, we're creating a community that's making positive change. We as a company and as designers are learning to be more responsible, and we're asking our customers and our community to join in with us and think differently.
This is a great example of a program that has not only scaled, but has also placed its clothing user at the center of the strategy. With some caveats, this is a very small portion of revenue in Eileen Fisher's total revenue. And some of the profitability of this program has been very challenging because of the high cost of processing and refurbishing and managing unsellable inventory. But it is nevertheless one of the first industry models that successfully scaled, and it offers designers a new venue to apply their skills. I was very excited to see in your the many presentations that are happening in this program this week related to the revival and preservation of traditional crafts and techniques. And these are most often used to create new products, but sometimes from reused materials. But these techniques hold many creative possibilities in the redesign domain. They naturally embody a culture of circularity that carries meaning. And these material goods easily become covetable for the clothing user because they are accompanied by a cultural story of the embroidery or the weaving techniques that are grounded in place. Designers can help preserve or continue their traditional craft techniques of the Philippines or Guatemala or India, for that matter, for visible mending and customization, another substantive sector of the industry that is poised for growth. The weaving methods can be used to capitalize on fabrics and yarns harvested from old garments. Natural dye techniques can be used to give old garments a new life. Embroidery methods can be used to cover holes or stains in creative ways. This is another fruitful landscape for designers. And finally, clothing users are also thinking very differently about their wardrobes today, thinking about clothes as things that they use instead of things that they collect. And the expansion of rental platforms provides another fertile ground for designers to foster a culture of fashion circularity. Take a look.
Call it the world's biggest closet. Close to 1 million pieces of clothing. Everything from shirts and skirts to dresses and denim that anyone, anywhere in the country can borrow for a fee.
This is like some mythical dream closet here.
It's pretty incredible. We think of it as Willy Wonka for clothes. Welcome to Rent the Runway's 250,000 square foot warehouse, just minutes outside New York City.
How do you keep track of all of this?
I mean, the incredible technology that powers this facility. Maureen Sullivan is the company's COO. Everything has a custom ID that helps us keep track of where it is. Hundreds of thousands of garments, sizes 0 to 22, processed, cleaned, and shipped out to customers around the country. It's fun to think about all of the places these clothes are going to go. And all of the women that are going to get to wear them.
If these clothes could talk, right?
Exactly. Retailers like Ann Taylor Express and Urban Outfitters Inc. now offering rentals. The industry could reach $4.4 billion by 2028. Ambika Singh started her company Armoire 3 years ago while she was in business school at MIT. Data and technology drive her purchases.
We try to watch what is trending in our inventory. So it's really important to us that we focus on what she wants versus what fashion is telling us is cool.
Today, the Seattle startup has thousands of customers ages 17 to 87.
So on average, about 15 different women will wear a single piece of clothing.
It's not just women getting in on the rental game. Companies like Thread Tread, the Mr. Collection, and the Black Tux offering men monthly subscriptions. What many now see as a culture shift.
How are things changing with the way people own or don't own?
Really, access is the new ownership.
The Rent the Runway's inventory has been designed for the rental system. These garments are designed for allowances for varying shapes and sizes and a large audience pool that's using these garments. They are designed with a higher level of quality, and the aesthetics are far more emotional than practical. And this is another domain where designers are being given a new set of criteria to create with. So the future of fashion circularity is reuse. This is the designer's new landscape, and it commands that we look at design in a very different way. And this landscape invariably puts the clothing user front and center in the designer's work. And compared to the sale of new garments, reuse holds a guaranteed promise of growth. Here, the designer can be a very important driver of circular culture by responding to how clothing users really want to use their clothing. And a designer's influence can be felt on multiple levels through trend setting, material experimentation, consumer education, and collaborating with suppliers. They are the future redesigners or repairists or material processors or waste weavers of circular culture. And they will need a new set of technical skills to deconstruct, to remake, visibly mend, to innovatively reinvent clothes. And they will need to understand materials and their longevity at a much deeper level. And they will ultimately need to understand how to engage the clothing user by telling stories about circular practices that are rooted in a culture of circularity. The evidence suggests that fashion brands will increasingly be held responsible for what happens to their products after the consumer has used them. And this is not something to fear as much as it is a springboard to creativity and innovation. When we design circularity, the key questions we should be asking ourselves is, does it eliminate waste? And does it create a culture of circularity? Is what we are designing involving the clothing user, eliciting their cooperation, engaging their collaboration, requiring them to take action, and is responsive to how they use clothes and for how long they want to use them? Because the user is our best source of design inspiration in a circular culture. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an insightful presentation on circular economy, and definitely the rental part is something we also want in India. though it requires, I think, a large number of clients to have it in that way. But definitely in small forms, it has also been adopted in India regarding ethnic wears. But in a large scale, we still need to work harder. There are a few questions, ma'am, in the chat box. One is, does the process of upcycling makes the clothes more expensive, and that it's or cost, and does it help extend the fabric life?
So I think the first part of that question was about increasing costs. So yes, of course it does, because there's a greater human cost that goes into upcycling and redesigning and reinventing something. That has certainly been the experience at Eileen Fisher, for example, that those garments are just as expensive as they were in the first life, because someone took care of them so that they could be prepared for a second life. And so there is a premium. There's a premium to be paid, but that higher cost is part of slowing the system down, which is needed overall anyway. So I think that the value also that those garments embody is worth the price. And remind me the second part of that question.
Does it help extend the fabric life?
So that goes back to the original design, and how important it is that when we are designing something, we are designing something new, how we should be thinking about its second and third and fourth life, because the material implication there is very important. It's very important that we're making things with a material that can withstand additional remaking or deconstruction and remaking. And our fast fashion system, the materials that are used in that system aren't well poised for that. But we find all kinds of evidence today of a tremendous amount of upcycling and redesign that happens with those garments as well. So I think it depends on the outcome, the design outcome that's designed.
Another important question, ma'am. How can fashion brand design take back of a repair program that truly engage users and make them feel part of the circular process? When we look into H&M and Mark and Spencer, they usually take your old cloth bags. But it's hardly a question whether they redesign it or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very few companies are actually doing anything with the material that they take back, and it's very problematic when that stuff is just baled and shipped off to another place to be destroyed or landfill, and it's often a function of greenwashing. But the companies that are, I think Eileen Fisher is an excellent example. There are some other examples of take back programs that are like Urban Outfitters also has a similar program where they're taking things back and they will reinvent and redesign, and then you get to choose from these one of a kind pieces that were made well to begin with. One of the things that I think the Eileen Fisher example is a good one, is because one of the things that they've been able to do is foster a culture in their brand ethos about quality. And so what they do, even if it comes at a tremendous cost, what they do with those products in the second and third and fourth life to redesign and upcycle them is part of shopping at Eileen Fisher, whether you're buying something new or you're buying something that's been used before. So I think that's where fashion brands can benefit from thinking about what their customer wants and needs. The Eileen Fisher customer is really responsive to these very high quality garments that are being made, and they're not necessarily interested in fashion trends or keeping up with fashion trends. they're really interested in this kind of one of a kind thing. That's not for every fashion brand, but I can think of other, there are other outdoor brands like Patagonia that do a lot of repair because that particular customer really desires to retain that garment for a long time, and so they need the support services to support that, having that long-term relationship. So I think it's about finding the fit of the circular strategy with the actual brand and its customer and what they want.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful session and answers. We have many more questions, and the time is of essence. So we would be posting it to you, and later on, if you feel like, you can respond it, and we can get back to the participants regarding your answers.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Uh,
much. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I wish everyone a great day at your conference today.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Rajiv sir for vote of thanks.
Good morning, all. On behalf of Amity University Chhattisgarh, it is my honor and privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks at the conclusion of this enlightening keynote session of our two-day international conference. First and foremost, I would like to express our profound gratitude to the visionary leaders whose continuous encouragement and support make such academic pursuits possible. Honorable Founder President Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Honorable Chairman Dr. Asim Chauhan, Honorable Chancellor Dr. W. Salvamurthy, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Piyush Kant Pandey, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor and Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. Sumita Dabe, your commitment to excellence and innovation is the guiding force behind all that we do. We are deeply honored to have had with us Dr. Koeste M. Joint Martins, Associate Professor, School of Family and Consumer Science, Texas State University, San Marcos, Texas. Your keynote on designing fashion circularity, don't forget the clothing user, brought a unique and vital perspective to our conference. The way you emphasize user-centered design in achieving fashion circularity was insightful and thoughtful provoking. Your presentation added immense value by bridging sustainable fashion practices with human behavior and responsibility. A special vote of thanks goes to our dedicated convener, Professor Dr. Parampreet Kaur, Acting Director, Amity School of Architecture and Planning, and Head of Institution, Amity School of Fashion Technology. Your unwavering leadership, meticulous planning, and passionate commitment have been instrumental in the success of this conference. I also wish to thank all of our faculty members, students, volunteers, technical support teams, participants, and attendees whose collective efforts and enthusiastic participation have made this session vibrant and impactful. Let us take forward the insights gained today to foster a culture of innovation, sustainability, and design responsibility in our respective fields. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful time.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good conference.
Thank you. Everybody can join in their respective links for the technical session now. It will be starting shortly as we are already late. So kindly join your links and we meet there.
Hello, I request IT team please end the meeting.
Yeah, can I end the session now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.